Hi and welcome. It's great to be back with you all today and excited to have a conversation today with Susan Wilkins, who is a survivor of the Community of Jesus in Orleans, Massachusetts. And I'm really looking forward to hearing your story. And I've seen your face and recognize you from years and years ago, but many, many, many years have gone by. We won't say how many, but it's going to be really, really great to just hear what brought you to the community, what life was like for you then, and what it's like for you now. My name is Bonnie Zampino. I'm your host, and this is The Cult on the Cape. Hi, Susan.
Hey, Bonnie.
How are you?
I'm cold. It's cold in Florida, and I know it's warm compared to you guys. I know it.
I was going to say, I don't think I want to hear it. What is cold in Florida?
Well, when it gets in the 40s overnight.
Okay, I'll give you that. Yeah. Well, I'm so thankful that you decided to share your story. And I think it's so important that survivors be able to talk about their lives, and not just their life within the Community of Jesus, but afterwards as well, and to talk about what we overcame, what we're still overcoming, but also the victories that we've gotten to enjoy, and it's the complete picture. So I seem to recall that you came to the Community of Jesus as a very young child.
Yes. So we moved to the Community of Jesus on, I looked it up today to have the date, November 25th, 1970. It was the day before Thanksgiving.
I was going to say, Happy Thanksgiving.
Yes.
And how old were you?
I had just turned 6 in October, so I was 6. Yeah.
Do you remember life before and how it came about that you would go there?
Yeah, so my parents, they each separately and together experienced very severe trauma, like within 10 years before me. So Dad was a successful businessman at the time, and he was a salesman, and they lived in Menlo Park, California, when all the trauma seemed to start. Mom's brother died in a one-car accident, and then their daughter died. It was so sad. She got a brand new doll carriage, went across the street to show her friend. The friend wasn't home. She came back home, and she crossed the street, and somebody was looking at mailboxes, didn't see her, and hit her. Yeah.
Oh no. How old was she?
She was 4.5, and my brother was, I think he was 2 years older, so 6.5. And I believe he witnessed it.
Oh.
Yeah. So that happened, which is devastating. Then, as I was told, like, you know how stories change over time, but the story I was told was that then they went on vacation that summer to kind of get over it and try to have a good memory. And Dad came home early to go back to business and found his brother hanging in his backyard. Yeah.
Oh my God.
I mean, that's honestly like the worst things, right there. So the thing is they were not religious before. I mean, maybe, I don't know if they went to church even on Easter and Christmas, who knows, but Dad found religion after that. And somebody, like a therapist, told me one time, because I said, not only did Dad find religion, but he had to be the minister. Like, you know what I mean? Like, because he gave up his job, they moved across country to New Jersey, and he went to theological seminary in Princeton. And somebody said it's almost like using religion as a drug. And knowing my dad, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, I mean, I definitely believe he had a call to something. I don't know. I hate that word. Sorry. But I do feel like in this particular instance, it was because he was so, so, so good visiting the sick. I mean, even in his later years, he would do it as an 80-year-old, a 90-year-old,
Oh,
he really was good at deathbeds and sickness and all that. So, and he also, this is jumping way ahead, but he also founded a local lunch in Orleans, and it was an interfaith free lunch that all the churches and the Jewish community got together, and but he was the spearhead of that and made it happen. And
so
I'm
he had
not
a
sure
lot
if
of
it still happens.
compassion.
Yes, he really did. So my brother, I guess at that time when they moved, he was probably like 11 or 12, so this happened, it took a few
Mhm.
years, but that's what happened. And that's how I got in the story because I was born out of wedlock to my mom. She was a teenage. She and my birth father, they met in high school. I found this out years later, but they met in high school. And so I was given up for adoption. And my parents couldn't have any more children, and they thought maybe having a daughter would kind of fix the family. I can see that, but I honestly don't think anybody was from all that trauma was in any way, shape, or form ready for a little baby. And this is
Mhm.
not said with anger or any bad feeling. I just think that's the facts.
Absolutely. Were you born in New Jersey then?
I was Atlantic City.
Okay. Oh
Yeah.
wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So they adopted you as a young
10 days.
baby? Oh
10 days old.
wow. Okay.
Yeah,
And
it literally
so
went from my birth mother to the adoption agency to meet them.
wow. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Mhm.
Okay. So do you know how your parents met Kay and Judy? Was it part of
Yeah.
your dad's
So it was
seminary
because,
experience?
oh, it wasn't seminary. Actually, it was because dad ended up, I don't know what the right term is for churches, but I want to say he ended up at a church in Darien, Connecticut, where Father Lane had a
Yep.
church.
Yep.
And somehow, I don't know if dad must have been at the Presbyterian church, like interning or whatever it is, whatever the correct term is. And dad and Father Lane were each very into sports, like squash. So I don't know if that's how they met or whatever, but Father Lane is the one who told dad about this place on the Cape. And so when
Mhm.
we were in Connecticut, we vacationed on the Cape, just not living there, just, renting a cottage. And like, I remember just snapshots. I mean, I was only like 2, 3, like, and the weird thing about my brain is I remember things from, like, I remember my second birthday.
Wow.
Yeah, but it's like in snapshots, it's not like,
Sure.
but my mom has verified that it's accurate. Like, it's not just me
Okay.
saying, oh, I remember. But I remember even Father Lane, they had adopted a girl and her name was Ginny. And Ginny and I used to, like in the wall, we would vacation with them sometimes on the Cape, and we'd put our fingers through a hole in the wall and play finger or whatever you play with a, little
Oh,
girl. Yeah. So I totally remember that. And then we ended up moving. Dad got a church in Ohio. So we moved to Ohio, but still vacationed on the Cape. I mean, I remember going to like Bible studies in Ohio. I'd fall asleep on their lap, but he was very not only into the leading his church, but he was very into Bible things.
when you were vacationing on the Cape, were you
Yeah.
attending services at Rock Harbor? Like, do you remember being involved with
Um,
Mother Kay and Judy then?
I want to say the last 2 years we vacationed there, so I would have been 4 and 5. I know for a fact we went to their Monday night meetings
Okay.
because I would fall asleep on in Dad's lap, and then they ended up just putting this is Bethany of the old days, and
Right.
there
When it
used to
was Rock
be
Harbor Manor.
yes, and there used to be like these like I want to say bunk beds in this tiny little bedroom that was off of the kitchen area. And I was in one of the bunk beds. They put me in to sleep just while they were having their meeting. And then when I was 5, we went and lived in there. That was one of the early, and lived in means that you're spending like a week living as you live, would in the community. So
Yes.
free game to be corrected, all that stuff.
Yes.
I mean, for a 5-year-old, it seemed fun because I was somebody at that age. I just loved people. I didn't know a stranger. Just, chubby little me would go up to anybody and say, "Hi, I'm Sue. What's your name?" Yeah, just a very happy child at that point. But yeah, that's how we got to the community because I knew my dad. My dad wasn't happy. He wasn't happy. I don't know. There were some issues with the church. And I don't know what they were, and I was just a kid. But they decided that we were going to move there. I was panicked because, like, when we were living in right before, in the summer before, I had asked Kay how old you had to be to live at the community. And she said, "Well, how old are you?" And I said, 5. She said, "Oh, no, you need to be 12, or some age."
Oh.
And I mean, she wasn't kidding. Like,
She wasn't. Okay.
no. And I mean, even tapes later, Monday night meeting tapes, she even says she didn't like kids. She's not a kid person. Yeah. And I can attest to that. And so my parents told me we were moving to the community and I panicked. And I said, "Well, what are you going to do with me? Are you sending me back to where you got me from?" Like,
oh.
I was completely panicked because I knew Kay wasn't kidding. So I was like,
Right.
They must have heard wrong. And, it's funny, as a child, I was like that about a lot of things. So maybe I wasn't as happy-go-lucky as I remember, but I needed to verify, or
Sure.
I had very strong ideas. So the whole way there, I was panicking. We drove the whole way, because they brought all their furniture and stuff. We didn't have a house. They were going to store all of it. But we got there and the whole community, such as it was, met us out front, with our big old moving truck. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Do you remember, did you live with your parents from that point on?
When I first moved there, yes. We ended up living at El Shaddai, which is now known as Capernaum. Like, the biggest thing I remember about that time is 2 things. One, I was told to eat my green beans and I wouldn't eat them. So my poor dad set a timer and I wouldn't eat them. Then he said, "I'm going to spank you if you don't have a dad's spanking cert." So, needless to say, he had a countdown, and 10 seconds before the timer went off, I shoved them all in my mouth and swallowed them.
That was traumatic. Green beans are horrible. No, I actually love green beans.
A 6-year-old. No, the other one that was a little more, had a lot of implications was Mom and Dad decided to tell me that there was no Santa Claus. I was 6, and I believed in Santa Claus like nobody else's business. Like, I had my own dreams about Jesus before I moved to the community. So I believed in God, I believed in Jesus, and I believed in Santa Claus, just right along with him, So when they told me there was no Santa Claus, I said, "Well, what about God then?" And just to watch the horror on my parents' face,
that's huge at 6. And that's a lot of, like, your belief system kind of getting rocked, for sure. What do you remember about the community then? Because they had maybe just gotten their nonprofit designation. What was it like then?
I obviously have some vague memories, but I don't think my life changed drastically. I think my parents' lives changed more than mine did at that point. I mean, for me, it was like, well, at least I had a bunch of boys to play with. You know what I mean? Like, and it was just, I was lonely because there was no little girls, and the boys obviously didn't want to play with me as much as I wanted. I just wanted playmates. It wasn't until later that I remember very much, a lot of things. But when I first moved there, I do remember the meeting we had about we couldn't wear pants to school and we couldn't have long hair. I remember that when those rules were made, and no jeans, no jeans.
So was that like in like 1970-ish?
Yeah, I want to say it was 1970, 1971.
So, a lot of religions view women's hair as a covering, and so the longer the better. But at the community, all the women had to have short hair. Do you know why?
Yeah, I think you need to look at the context where the community was, and that was in the 1970s when hippies, free love, all that. So it was long hair was in, right? And long hair equaled rebellion in the mother's view. Same with jeans, because everything was about denim then. Because with all the hard work, physical labor we all did, it doesn't make sense, but I think it was more what it represented. And then pants, they were looking for a way that we would stand out, which to a 6-year-old is a nightmare, but
Yep.
Because I even remember when I went to gym, like I used to wear a dress and then I would wear pants underneath it and I'd be humiliated. All you want to be is like your friends, right?
Yeah.
And it wasn't like I had friends at the community, so I made friends at school, but I couldn't hang out with them. But it was definitely those decisions were made as a result of the world that a 6-year-old remembers. But I do remember that meeting. I was sitting on my mom's lap and we were around the table in Zion.
Do you remember when the mothers started to be called mothers?
I want to say it was a year or two after that, if not 3 years. It was not immediately then, I don't think. I kind of remember it as being like the grown-ups in the early days, they were always called off to meetings, morning, noon, night, whatever, just random. And a lot of people, including my dad, did not have jobs. I mean, dad couldn't sustain that, but we lived through all our money. And then, so they were called a ton. And that was before vows came relatively early, I want to say, but it used to be all community members, and then it became all vowed community members. Mm-hmm. And as kids, you'd sit around with a stomach ache because you'd worry about what's coming down the pike. Sometimes it could be horrible, and sometimes it wasn't so bad. So, yeah.
Yeah. So do you remember did you ever stop living with your parents?
Yeah.
Do you remember about what age that was for you?
I was 6, and it was in the summer of 1971. I found out the story from she's now a sister, but she told me it was her idea because she wanted to live at Nazareth where there were a bunch of teenage girls living together. And she was across the street at Gethsemane living with her mom. So she had the idea that we could swap. And I guess people felt I needed to be debratted. That's just the word that sticks in my mind. So I went to live with this woman, and oh my God.
Was she a woman? Was this I'm sorry, the woman that's a sister.
Yeah.
Her idea was what? That she would go
we
live
would swap places. She would live at Nazareth with my parents, and I would live at Gethsemane. And it was with her mother. Mom.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
That would have been horrible. Anybody, but
a lot of people have have these warm memories. I'm like, you didn't meet the woman I did. And she features heavily in Carrie Buddington's book, which makes me feel validated in a way that it's not just a 6-year-old memory. It really, Christianity, as we've seen in the larger world, in the wrong hands is a scary thing. And nothing reflecting Christ, as far as I can see, or his
So
values.
How did it feel to you to be taken away from your parents? And did you ever go back to living with them, or was that it for you?
It was really scary. First of all, I felt very vulnerable. Second of all, the grown-ups that were responsible for you were to be mean to you. They were not nice. So it was like, I would spend hours praying on my knees to confess jealousy of a baby in the house, because anytime the baby would cry, it would be my fault because of Soul Force. And the thought was I wanted to be the baby, which I really didn't. I mean, and first of all, I didn't even know what jealousy meant. I didn't know what Soul Force meant. And
And I recall that term, but can you explain it real quick?
Soul Force?
Soul Force? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's maybe it's like thought projections, like when you think, oh, that person's an asshole, or that, I am so jealous of that person, I want their money, or whatever it is. It's basically, I can't think of what the vernacular term is, but it's like you projecting a thought towards somebody else. That's what Soul Force is. Yeah.
Okay. So how long did you live with this other
So this is
household?
where it gets murky. This is where my memory and time frames get murky. I want to say I lived with her almost a year, and because I remember at some point we were all outside at some festival. The community would have these little festivals every once in a while, and Blair had come, and Blair and I were friends, and it was so much better when I went and played with Blair, because all I was doing was going to her house and playing, right? And Kay loved Blair. And so I had a problem with that, only because I was envious. I just want to make a distinction about language with jealousy versus envy, because my whole upbringing at that place was about confessing my jealousy. And that is incorrect, because I would sit there thinking, well, why am I confessing jealousy when it says God is a jealous God?
Mm.
So jealousy means this is my phone and I'm guarding it. Whereas envy means I like your red shirt. I'd really like to have that. So anyway, sorry, I digressed.
By the way, thank you. No, I'm kidding.
But it's funny
how I give it to you, just so you know.
But it's so funny, just how you spend your whole life being like yelled at for sins, like being high,
Which is not the fun high. We should explain. It means haughty
or judgmental. So anyway, I asked if I could go move in with Blair, because I thought it would be a party all the time. Well, it wasn't. I moved with Genesaret, and I think I loved being with Blair, but it was more or less of the party all the time, and the rules get in place and stuff like that. And I have to say, yes, the kids were having a really hard time because we didn't choose to live there. We don't get it. We're in our formative stages. So we're trying to figure out what the heck is up, right? Whereas these poor grown-ups, or not poor grown-ups, but they chose to live there, and they're going through the ringer just like us and having to raise kids. Like, I would never want to live at that place and raise kids, to be honest.
But predominantly, our parents weren't raising us. It was people raising other people's kids.
Exactly.
Would that just be easier because there was no mandate for any of those adults, aunts and uncles that were raising us to show us love, care, compassion? They were,
that was the intention.
It was just to discipline us and punish us. That was it.
I have to say, it also depended on the person, because I know that Blair's mom loved me. I still know that to this day, right? I ran into her. She's still very pro-community and all that, but I still knew she loved me, right? And that meant something to me. But she was always in trouble for idolatry, so that kind of stunk. But there were moments of color, or moments, very few. I'm not defending people, but I can't imagine, having lived through the community as a kid, I can't imagine then raising children in that environment. I just can't imagine it. But so to get back on track, so I moved to Genesaret, and then I moved back to Gethsemane because they wanted me to live with my parents. I mean, I remember there was one situation where I was going to my room, and I walked by the bedroom and I heard, "Slap him harder," because all the grown-ups were in there. And I heard the woman telling my mom to slap my dad harder to make it hurt. Oh. And inside, I was terrified. And I was like, if they're slapping grown-ups, what the heck is going to happen to me, right? I mean, I always got spanked anyways, but it was terrifying.
Traumatic to see your mother.
I was a daddy's girl. I got to say, when
Right?
I moved there, I was a daddy's girl. So it was
Mm,
awful. And it
mm.
was like sickening because at that time, I was just tiptoeing around. So one day when I was there, I was outside playing, and I was bored out of my mind, but I just wanted to stay out of being in trouble. And finally, I had to go to the bathroom. And I just really had to go to the bathroom. And I knocked on the door and I said, can I please go to the bathroom? They said, no, you're just being nosy. You stand right here. And then they started yelling at me and whatever sin I was in. I said, I've really got to go to the bathroom. So anyway, I ended up peeing right on the kitchen floor. I got in wicked trouble. So that's the kind of
Gosh.
flavor of it's unique. It's not like just sitting there beating you, right? It's like all this mind games when you're
Hmm.
6 and 7.
It's so sad. It just makes me want to cry. You grew up there.
So I get somebody, and then it was like I'd move back to Gennesaret without my parents, then I'd move with my parents, then so it was kind of off and on. At one point, I was at Gennesaret, which is a gorgeous home right on Cape Cod Bay. I mean, absolutely phenomenal. And I was responsible for all the kids. Like, I was the oldest. And then I was responsible for all the kids my age. And then all of them had kids that were younger that they were responsible for.
Were all of these children living in this house
Yes.
together?
Yes. So Mary, Sarah, David, and I was responsible for Mary and David. Blair was responsible for Sarah. And I feel like the Buddington kids might have been there. So we were all responsible for younger kids.
So sorry, to interrupt you. When you say responsible for, were there adults in this house?
Yes. Yes. But
then there was
basically,
also a conglomerate of random children.
yes. So basically, I was the kids' representative, if you will. Like, I handed out the chores. In church, it was up to me to make sure they all behaved. And it was up to, Blair and others like my age to make sure their little ones behaved. But if anybody was out of order, it was my fault, kind of thing.
Okay, so what age were you when you were responsible for these children?
10 to 12, probably, somewhere in that age range.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and then I was getting in trouble for being high while you have it. So, because somebody was complaining, I didn't sweep under the table. Well, I could complain because Blair kept having to go poop every time after dinner and miss all the dishes. She'd come back when we're all done. Hello, that's, not a coincidence, right? I mean, we all complain about each other, but then I got in trouble for being high. So I had to sweep under the table every night while still being in charge of all the kids. It makes you laugh. I mean, there were some good moments. Like Aunt Virginia used to every night during Advent. I loved Advent and Lent because she would read the Chronicles of Narnia. She would read a chapter a night, right? So that was fun.
Wow.
Or like we all had Advent calendars, so we would all get to open our. You know what I mean? Like, I want to say it wasn't all black. These are the colors. I mean that make it so difficult for somebody like me. Like, this is what I grew up in. So I will speak out on truth and try to keep the story straight, but it's hard to say I hate everything because it's what made you you. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely, 100%. And I think that there's part of our psyche that has to note the good things. I think what makes me sad is that someone reading a chapter of a book to you should not be a special, wonderful memory. That should be so freaking normal that it is something you don't even remember. And so it's like, I also have these moments and I try to share them almost as a way of saying, I'm not a total victim and I'm not saying everything was bad. No, everything was fucking bad. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. So,
Yeah.
yes, I mean, it's great that we have these moments and these memories, but they shouldn't have been unusual. But anyway, so, okay. I'm assuming you went to school, middle school, high school. You did your
Yes.
whole career, school
Yeah,
career
whole
there.
career. Yeah. And in fact, that's one of the statements I heard with my own ears Kay Anderson say, that we will never at the Community of Jesus not send our kids to public school. They will always go to public school. We will never homeschool them. She said that, and I was there to hear it.
Really?
Yes.
Well, that didn't stick.
No, it didn't stick, but I
Do you
heard it.
know why? Do you know why she would have said that?
No, but she felt very strongly about it.
Okay.
Very strongly. And
What do you
I'm very
remember
grateful.
about her? Do you remember her being ill or having
Okay,
seizures
so
or
I will say I really didn't like her. So I want to just say that's my perspective. Okay, so
okay?
I just remember her being very cold, very
Yes.
crotchety, and and in fact, I knew she didn't like me, but I didn't like, I knew it as a kid, but it wasn't confirmed until I was much older that people said, yeah, in fact, she didn't like you, or yes, there was a community meeting and we were all warned to keep our eyes on you around any boys because being born out of wedlock, you will be born, she will have kids out of wedlock, that kind of thing. So,
Wow.
yeah. So I don't really, I mean, and she herself at a mother-daughter retreat gave me her story with Peter, and I don't really want to speak out of turn since he might take offense, but like when you were telling her story and how she loved her boopsie and all that, I think that was early when he was a little boy, because
Mhm.
the story she told me, I was like, God, I'd hate to have her as mother, because she judged his birth mother like nobody else's
Yes.
business in the story that she told me. So,
I also read somewhere that his birth mother was like friends with someone in her family who may have also had a baby out of wedlock or something
yeah,
like that.
all I know is she really didn't like, and she was very cold about it. And, that my adoption was a thing, like I want to say, in my whole community upbringing, because ever since I can remember, like my story always was Anne died, I was adopted, and I would lay in bed as a little kid, right at the ages we were talking about, just saying, God, why did you have to kill Anne to have me?
God
Being
bless.
like,
Oh,
why? Like, I mean, this is not a one-time thing. This is multiple times. And I'd be like, couldn't you have had both of us, But I've always, like, I can't remember not wanted to know who my birth parents were. Like, it was always a thing. So
yeah. Yeah.
that was always part of my
It's part
psyche,
of our identity. I'm
Yes.
adopted as well. I have two very vivid memories of the mothers, and I was a live on. Like
Hmm.
I was there for, 3 years, but I wasn't, my parents weren't there, whatever.
Right.
I was kind of the very
I
low.
remember you being there. That's a big set of my memory. Yeah.
Yeah. It's, I mean, I was a nothing, I was really low
Yeah.
on the totem pole, but there was a time that I was called to the chapel and Kay and Judy were there waiting for me and they were praying over me about my adoption.
Yeah.
And it was bizarre because I don't, I mean, obviously my parents must have told them that I was adopted. I
Yeah.
didn't talk to them. I didn't, I wasn't around them, but they were having, visions and telling me their visions of my birth mother delivering me, but it was Jesus and not the doctor that got me, and that he put me over his shoulder and walked out of the room. And it actually made me angry because I was like, why would Jesus do that? Why would he take me away
Yeah.
from my mother? And
Yeah.
I'm sure that they were weirdly a lot of adoptees in the community. Maybe that was a big thing back then or something at that time of but there seemed to be a bit
Yeah.
of a fixation. So,
Well,
uh,
and the thing is, for me, it didn't matter. Like, I was told it didn't matter. And I was the only one out of all the adoptees there that really wanted to find my birth brother. Like, everybody else. And there was a whole season where it was huge. Everybody was finding out their family roots, and getting into family trauma and family roots and family sins and all that. And a lot of healing going on. I mean, big, deep weekend retreats with community members. And I was just beside myself because Betsy and Judy were allowed to go find out their birth parents and meet them
oh,
even. Neither of them met them. And I think both of them, their stories were different. So I don't remember them. So I'm not,
yeah.
just my vague inclination was that neither of them had a great experience, right? Like it
Hmm.
wasn't a
Hmm.
warm, interactive. So then I said, well, since they're finding out, can I find out? And I was told no. And I was just so
Mm.
angry because I felt like, I think by that time I was a novice or something.
Oh, so you were
Anyway,
older then.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, I do think that that was the family trauma and roots and stuff because I want to say Buzz Elmer, maybe. That wasn't his name. Like, there were men
Basil.
who had their names changed because they had their father's names. And it was like the severing of these generational
Oh, yeah,
ties. Else that I was looking
absolutely.
at that was like,
Yeah.
what? Where did this come from? So,
My dad, for
yeah.
a while, I mean, his name is Thomas, but for a while he was going by Andrew. And I was completely like, what the heck is this? But he was kicked out of the community so times, and they finally dropped the Andrew thing. So,
Oh, so did your parents remain there for their lifetimes?
okay. So I was thinking, I think I lived with them a little bit more than I remember. I mean, I would say preponderance, I didn't. And when I did live with them, generally it was like either I was like nobody wanted me or whatever until ninth grade. And then ninth grade, they were sent to Rochester, New York, which there was a minister there named Bill Showalter and his wife
Mm.
Carol. Yes, the wife, I'll never forget it. She had just bought a diet company at some point, and I
She
remember,
created it, the diet, discipline, and discipleship.
well, I remember it, and I remember, again, I was in Zion. Don't ask me why I was there, but I was there. And I was there with my mom, and they were trying to come up with a name for this diet thing. And so somebody came up with diet, discipline, and discipleship. And my mom, this is so my mom kind of thing. She was knitting or something. And she said, oh, you should call it 3D.
3D. They
And I'm
did?
like, darn it, she should have gotten some money out of that, you know?
Oh, no.
She
Yeah.
didn't. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what
So
they
anyway,
did call it,
that's,
3D.
yeah, so
Yeah.
3D. And
So
then,
your parents got sent to the
to,
Showalters church.
yes, to Rochester, New York, because at big churches they have the main minister and then they have like junior, not
The
junior, but assistant
assistant
ministers.
rector or whatever. Yeah. Hmm.
Yes, so dad was going to fill in for a while. This is a good thing because it also keeps his presbytery creds up, which became
Hmm.
really important later on. So for dad. So yeah, so he went to Rochester. And it's unfortunate because that was when I had been living with them at Judea, and it was probably a good memory with them. Like it wasn't warm and fuzzy because by that time our ties as a family had been broken,
Yeah.
but it wasn't like we were kind of like all the outcasts. So in a way, it was like almost better to be an outcast there, right? Because you don't have
Yes.
the battle axes in
Yep.
there, killing you. So this was one of the rare times, there were like only 2 or 3 times at the community that I was happy. I was content. And it was basically
Mhm.
because inside I had decided, Fangul to y'all, I'm just going about my business, ignoring everybody. Because at the community, and this is true in any social situation, you have so many people fighting to be in the in crowd or the cool crowd
Mhm.
or the whatever crowd. And all of my crowd, they were all rich except for me. Very poor. And I just finally was like, I had enough of it and I'm just going to mind my business, do what and I will say I believed in God still, you know what I mean? Like in my mind, like, so I just focused on me, God, and doing my thing. And,
Okay.
I was happy. And then mom and dad were sent to Rochester. Jill called me up herself, which this is like Princess Diana calling me. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like
Yep.
just for
Yep.
a comparison. So she called me and said, "Hey, I will have you live with me until they come back. You know, we'd love to have you." And also I was like, "Oh my God, my stock has risen." You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and I was almost worried because I was so happy and I was like, "Damn it." Like I'm scared because it's almost like when you're kind of an outcast in a group, it's almost worse to have the light shown on you by
Yeah.
the in crowd, right? Because
Yeah.
then I become addicted to that. Like
Of
if there's an
course.
addiction I have, it's wanting to be validated and loved. That's what I
Yeah.
desperately wanted. And here I am getting basically my heart's desire. Well, it
Yeah.
wasn't, I mean, it wasn't great. And as it always does, I took care of, that's where I raised Peter for like the first year of his life. I was extremely involved with that. So I was in ninth grade. And then rumor
So,
had it.
if am I
Yeah.
understanding correctly? Your parents were sent away, but
Yes.
you were a teenager, but you did
Yes.
not go with them.
No, I did not.
And how long were they gone that time?
I want to say 2 years.
Because you mentioned a brother or your brother.
Oh, yes.
Where was
Steve.
he? Because I don't hear you talk about him at all. Was he separated from you for?
Yeah. So he was 12 and a half, 13 years older than me.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah. So we weren't close. I mean, he did babysit me, but I am just like not in his tax bracket. You know what I mean? As far as a relationship. And I found out years and years later when I left the community, like he resented me when they adopted me because he felt like, why
Oh,
wasn't he enough? You know,
oh,
which I
yeah.
get. Like, I'm not no stones thrown at him, but it was just not like, oh, yeah, I've got a baby sister. You know, it was more
Did
like,
he move to the community with you?
he moved to the community and lived there very briefly. I want to say he was a novice for a very brief amount of time. And he
Okay.
was like, not for me, sayonara.
Yeah.
And dad at that time gave him a mandate, you know, basically like, we're going to completely cut you off if you don't stay, you know.
Oh,
That's very, it sounds brutal, but that
that's
was standard
common.
office.
I know.
Yeah. But the thing is, it had a huge effect on me, huge, because I felt like the mantle of taking care of my parents fell on me because I knew that,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And I was their sole focus, but it was also, which sounds great, but not when your relationships are broken up, right? But I
Right.
felt a burden to make sure that my actions reflected well on mom and
Yeah.
dad.
Yeah. I can completely understand that.
Yes. Yeah.
So they're gone for at least 2 years. You're becoming, a young woman. So when you finished high school, you've mentioned becoming a novice.
Yeah.
Did that happen like immediately? Were you being groomed for that while you're in high? Like, how did that
Yeah.
transition
So
happen?
one thing I do want to say about the whole high school experience is you're
Yeah.
going through all your hormones, right? And
Yes,
and you're told sex is really bad, so don't do
absolutely.
it. My way of handling that was by completely, I think I started that fragmentation or compartmentalization is
Hmm.
there was no way I wanted to confess sex sins, so I
Yeah.
completely blanked them out. Blank. It's scary what I did, but I would walk around and I'd be like, Jesus, help me not think of it. You know, because if you
Oh,
think, oh, penis, oh no, God, I can't think about
right.
it.
And then you got to confess it.
Yeah, and, you know, and all that. And I didn't even know about like masturbation. I didn't even know about all that shit where until I was a
Right.
novice being accused of it. I didn't even know what that was. Like I was,
God
that's how I
bless.
learned so much
Oh,
about sex is, you
it's all the
know,
things they were accusing us of doing that we weren't
yes. And
doing.
then I look
Mhm.
it up. Yeah. Yeah. So the thing that was sucked about high school for me is nobody, like at the community, you go to school, you come home, you do your homework, and then you're all into either doing chores, practicing your instrument, whatever the community agenda is. But the thing is nobody ever asked me about my schoolwork. Nobody ever asked me, are you struggling in anything? Nobody ever. So I felt, even though there were these grown-ups taking care of me, they were more about keeping me free from sin or accusing me of sin than they were caring about me. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Yep. Or making sure that you're showing up for whatever work crew you were on, etc. I don't know that they actually, frankly, cared particularly about women or girls and their academic life. I don't feel like that was at all. I mean, it wasn't like we were going to go to college or something. We were going to get married.
But you're a different generation. I mean, not generation, a different age group.
Yeah.
So when I was going to high school, people did go to college.
Girls?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
So it changed because there was a huge thing. Because even Jill was like, because I really wanted to go to college, but I didn't know how to make it work. And my parents, so they went to Rochester, and then from Rochester, either they came back briefly or they were sent to Bermuda for years. So, like high school, I might have lived with them very briefly, but it was very briefly, right? Very, very briefly. I think they might have come home. My senior year, we lived in Israel for a while, and then they were sent to Bermuda.
If we could just clarify, there was a house, Lion's Den, I think they called it, where the mothers would go and people were
and the
community
outlook,
members.
Like, it's a big, 30-acre tract of land, I'd say.
Yeah. The Hayden Trust, if I remember. But
That's
community
correct.
members would go either because they were on discipline or to go take care of the place or whatever. Okay. Just wanted to clarify that.
So Belle and Buzz Elmer had been there for years and years and years. And so I think Mom and Dad were the ones that were sent once Belle and Buzz came home for good. And I think Mom and Dad went down there. I want to say, I could be wrong. So anybody listening, you could correct me on the timeline. But I know they went to Bermuda. So I didn't know how to, I was so lost. I didn't want to be a sister. I totally didn't. But I had been groomed from, I want to say, my 17th birthday on. It was, I think it had been subtle before, but after my 17th birthday on, people were just shoving me. It's really hard to describe to people who haven't lived in that kind of a situation. But, I got a birthday word that you can interpret it anyway, but the way the powers that be interpreted it in my life was that, see, you're called to be a sister. And I knew they'd interpret it that way, but I didn't feel, I honestly, I know even if community members hear this, the ones that are still there, they'll say, no, see, she's still lying or she's still avoiding her call, whatever. No, I'm not. You told me, that wasn't, I said I was afraid of being a sister because everybody's shoving me towards it.
Yes. Yep.
Right?
Same exact experience. And I remember deeply not wanting that for my life. But you're also so primed to try to please, and you're not going to end up with a whole lot of options. I mean, you're going to get married, or you're going to be, maybe at your time, there were, I heard about single vows. There were not single people when I was there. You were. Yeah,
and there were even after you for a while. Now, then they all became sisters, but that's chapters later, right? But yes, there was a strong singles group, but that wasn't interesting to me. The problem was there were a finite amount of boys and there were a finite amount of girls. And I know my boy wasn't there, right? If I was ever going to get married, because, I didn't have money, and at the community it was either money or talent. I am extremely good at many things. I am not a prodigy at anything. So I can pick things up fast. I can, you can see it even at my work as a sister. I fed 90 people twice a day. I was a cantor. I was responsible for the switchboard, had to keep that running 24 hours a day. I also did job procedures to the place. Like these were all things I did simultaneously. But anyway, to go back, like in my day, going to school, going to college was a plan, but it was really if you have the money. My plan with Jill, I mean, I told Jill I wanted to go to Catherine Gibbs, which was a 2-year secretarial, very well acclaimed secretarial school. And then maybe I could afford to send myself to college. I didn't know about social services. I didn't even know that was a thing because I could have totally qualified for a Pell Grant, gotten a free ride, and here I'm at 61 having to pay for school. So then I had the misfortune. I graduated high school June 5th, 1983. And then there was a meeting called on Labor Day, which was September 5th, 1983. And it was all the young women my age, so a couple of years above me and maybe a year or two underneath me. And we were all called to Bethany's living room, and I happened to sit behind the person who was the subject of the meeting, which sucks because everybody's staring that direction. Okay. This was a late session. This was a good old-fashioned late session. I don't remember. I do know who the person was, but I don't know what they did. I don't even know what was going on, to be honest. Like, I mean, I don't remember that because my story happened right after hers. So her session was over and I got out of that. And then Jill says, and Sue Witter, what's going on with you? And I was just like, oh, fuck.
Oh, no.
I said, I don't know what to do with my life. I don't know. And you could just see the mothers, you know. And so basically they were like, why don't you go live with the sisters and you can blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, I don't want to do this. But in my mind, it's like, well, I'll do it to get out, you know, to stay out of trouble, but I'm not, this is not a permanent thing. But in those days, living with the sisters meant you were a novice. They didn't have this postulancy into novitiate to sisters. So that day, September 5th, I moved down with the sisters. My parents didn't even know. My mom didn't think I was supposed to be a sister. Yeah, so I lived with them and I was assigned to Sister Celine and I cleaned literally every toilet on the place. I thoroughly cleaned the trash cans. I cleaned clean dorms. To this day, I cannot stand cleaning because I don't like living in a messy house, but I don't have the energy to clean.
I got it. Completely get it.
And so it's interesting because we'd have novice mistresses. Mine were Rachel and Hope. The pressure was very steady they didn't even care what I said, right? Nobody cared what I said. It was just like, you're supposed to be a sister, you're avoiding your call, you're blah, 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 blah. Like, it was the same message. It didn't matter what I said. It didn't matter. Like, it literally felt like I was shouting into the wind because I found out the reason later when I left, but I didn't know. 2 years went by and I was scared that if I didn't graduate to be a sister, that I would then be the focus of all the attention. Like, as a novice, you get given the bad jobs, right? You also, we had to write notes every night. This is my form of rebellion. I just didn't write them. I didn't have anything to say. I cooked. I cleaned. You know what I mean? Like, what do you want to know?
But these notes were supposed to be like a confession of
sins,
thoughts, sins, whatever.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I stopped it within the first few months of me being a novice. And do you know, to this day, nobody has called me out for not writing those notes?
Isn't that so weird? Like, the stuff that you think is going to be such a huge deal and you feel so brave that you're taking the stand. And it's like, oh.
No, you know what I felt? I felt completely inconsequential to them.
Oh, like they couldn't have cared less.
They didn't care less. I knew it and I proved it. And that's how my whole community journey has been. They didn't give a shit unless I did what they wanted. What they wanted, not together, let's figure it out. Yeah. And it was really, disappointing. So I said, sure, I'll be a sister. I did not want to. Oh, and I had a meeting with Kay and Judy, and Claudia was there, and Lucy was in and out. And Claudia at that time, so I had my novice mistresses, Rachel and Hope, and then Claudia was above her. So all three of them were involved. I think Sister Irene might have been there, but I really had no dealings with her, even though she had dealings with Danielle and Cecilia. And it came out later she hated me anyway. So they told me that they spoke with Barbara and Jill, and Barbara is the one who I knew loved me. And they said, because I had written a note and said, I don't want to be a sister. I want to go back to the community. And they said, well, they don't want you back. You're such a bitch. Nobody wants you.
They said that this was coming from Barbara, who you believed loved you.
And Jill.
Oh, was Princess Diana. Oh, yeah. Did you believe them? Did that hurt so much?
I could see it coming from Jill, but I know Barbara is kind of the one get along to go along kind of thing. But see, what also happened around that time is there was this huge meeting with all the sisters and the novices. And it was Felicia at that time was a novice. It was Felicia, Danielle, Cecilia, and me. And Felicia got in wicked trouble, but so did I. It was me and Felicia that were called out because Blair, my best friend growing up, had complained because we were terrible to her in band. We were told, we were told the seating order is, and Felicia, Blair, me. And because I had my own feelings with Blair, because I felt she went to Grenville and she had her own trauma. Her own trauma was wiping everything out. So in wiping everything out, she wiped our whole friendship out. It wasn't personal to me. It was her coping mechanism. So I'm not saying this with rancor. That's just how it happened. But I didn't know at the time she had done that. So I was
just
bewildered and hurt. So we were told to speak up to Blair. I said one thing, maybe twice, and it was the most mealy mouth, we're supposed to play quiet, just a reminder, that kind of thing.
Right.
I mean, now I will say Felicia was all over her, but the thing was, she was told to be all over her, right?
Yeah, that's so messed up.
So we got wicked in trouble. And then I will never forget it. Felicia really got it.
Wait, you're told to do it. You did it. And then she complained and then you got in trouble for doing it?
Oh, well, yes. And Jill, I will never forget this, said to the entire sisterhood, and you watch out for that Sue Witter. This is why I don't use the name Sue anymore. You watch out for that Sue Witter. She is Hitler in the making.
What? Oh my gosh, that's horrible. And all you were doing was trying to fly under the radar.
Yes. I'm not saying I was sinless or spotless or anything, but that, to this day, I wasn't ganging up Blair. And because I was miserable enough in my own life, because I was the subject of many sisterhood dinners where, I found out brothers were fantasizing about me, and I'm like, why? You know what I mean? Like, I'm chubby, I'm not pretty, y'all told me that, so why?
Would you get in trouble for brothers fantasizing about you?
Oh, 100%. It's totally my fault because I'm drawing it to me. Mm-hmm. Like, even I probably am a little flirty in my interactions, but it wasn't about sex for me. It's just
personality.
And try to be nice. And honestly, the community life is, especially at different times, can be so brutal that I personally tried to be nice to everybody I met. Not fake nice, but at least not come in with, trying to find sin kind of thing, trying to keep it light, trying to keep it fun. Anyway, so yeah, so that was all that whole mess. So then I became a sister, and I was looking the other day, I pulled out my pictures, and I have a picture of me, and I looked so young, and I did have a smile on my face that does not belie what was happening inside, because I had told God right before we sat down to say the vows, I said, God, I don't mean this, and please don't hold this against me, because like I said, I've always had this inner relationship kind of, I don't know what you call it, but like to me, I say God or I say Jesus or whatever, but that's just, I had a vivid dream when I was 3 or 4. To this day, I remember the dream. So maybe it was because I felt so alone or whatever, and it was me sitting on his lap, you know what I mean? And I felt so safe and so pure. And He was in my dad's church, and I was sitting on his lap, and I'll never forget. And I was thinking about this earlier today. There were two ladies behind him yapping away, and he had already said, "Let us pray." And the whole church went silent, and they're like, "Blah, blah, blah, blah." And he turned around and he said, "I said, let us pray."
Was it Jesus in your dream saying this? Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
And I was thinking today, what if that was the mothers?
You know what? That went through my head when you said it. That's so weird. Oh my gosh. But you did take your vows and you did become a sister. And what choice did you have? Because if nobody wanted you back.
They said my choice was to leave the community where I had no family out of the community.
Right.
And we had been told how horrible the, outside world was.
Oh, yeah.
And I was always told if you left, you'd be a streetwalker, right?
Yep. Yep.
And you also have no sense of yourself. Like there wasn't, yes, there was a before me, but I was 6 when I moved to the community. Yeah. So I have no sense of self or who I had grown into. Mm-mm. And at the community, you're always told basically, well, I wasn't told this growing up, to be honest, but it was intimated that most women are whores or whatever.
Oh,
I wasn't told that till I became a novice. I was told no man will look twice at you. You'll mother him to death. You're cute. You'll never be pretty. You're going to grow up to be as wide as you are tall. All this stuff.
Oh.
So, I mean, it's funny. I'm working on that with the therapist. Just last week I was talking, it's a whole nother thing to talk about, but
yeah.
So you don't grow up with a sense of who you are as a human being. So to say, if I left the community, you don't know to go to social services because I didn't know they existed. So the community basically, I had been offered once or twice, we'll give you $200, you can go, and a bus ticket, and you can go. What the hell am I where? Right.
And do what with who?
You live on the streets of Boston. They said you'll be a prostitute, but
Yep.
So there's no sense of.
It's not a choice. There's something in the cult psychology called bounded choices.
Yes.
And sure, there's a choice, but there's no choice. It's not a choice. Either you can't, or they really won't let you. Like God bless. So how long were you a sister?
I was a sister for 20 years. I became a sister in 1985, and I left in 2005.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I became Sister Julia because, like I mentioned, I hated Sue Witter. That had just been misused so much. That's why, like today, I go by Susan, even though Susan seems stuffy. Like my friends call me Susie, and I love that because it's like I'm not a Susie, but
it's endearing
with such like real kindness, right? Not the fake. Like I decided by just going down the name of all the names in a saint book, and I was like, oh, Julia. That didn't seem like a run-of-the-mill sister name, and it seemed kind of perky and fun. So,
can you talk about what led up to? I mean, after 20 years as a sister and being there since the age of 6, what was the process like as you were starting to the leaving process? Were you thinking about it, or like how did that go?
It took a really long time to get there. Now, I will say I wanted to leave the community in middle school because I felt like I had been there since day one. Not really. I mean, but within the first year, before anybody in my age or, but I never felt like it was home ever. And I always was like, oh, how are all these people coming in and fitting in so well? Well, shouldn't they be fitting to me rather than me fitting to, you know what I mean? Like it was always in the back of my mind or, anyway, so then I became a sister, but in my mind, I would leave. When I went to take my second vows, I think I told you this before, but there was something messed up. I used my old book and they had rewritten the vows and I didn't know it. Yes. So then they thought I was intentionally leaving Kay and Judy out of it. So I never said my vows, which I felt like, oh my God, God took me on his word, right? Because I'm somebody who believes in God. So he took me at my word because I told him not to hold this against me. So I think he was like, then girl, you're not going to say these words, right? And so
So the
basically,
vows that you said were not the current vows, and therefore they
well,
were
I
like
never even
invalid.
finished them. So Judy, like literally, you could see these bad looks on their faces. And I'm like, she just put her hands on my head and said, you're done. Go sit down.
Oh my God. Okay. And our second vows, are those vows to the mothers? Are they supposed
I
to
wish
be?
I
Or
remembered more. I know the mothers were involved. I feel like what I remember, and I could be wrong, but I think it was how it was explained to me is they were accepting the vows I was making on behalf of God.
oh, sure.
So basically, you're saying it to them, and they're the keepers of the vows because God's not right there to take them. And I don't know, whatever. They have people like script writers and people who kind of look up things to make it sound good, right? So
Sure.
the first and second vows were sister specific. And then at that time, it changed. And then the third vows were stability. And I don't really remember if that even happened. I think I mumbled them, but I didn't say them or whatever. But okay,
Instability
so
means you're never going to leave.
you're never leaving. In my mind, it reminds me of the Scientology billionaire pledge or whatever it is. But I was always unhappy. So there was this big community meeting called, and I was supposed to be the like star witness on behalf of Kay and Judy. I didn't know this. And Judy said, are you happy as a sister? And she said, don't answer right away. I want you to tell the truth. Do I tell the truth? Do I not tell the truth? Does she know? So I said, no, I'm not happy.
Oh no.
Yeah, the whole community. That went over like a lead balloon. The only reason I'm happy it happened, though, is again, this is when I feel inconsequential. So then it was like horror. Oh my God. No, oh, and then Sister Irene came running down because she had been watching it on camera with Kay up in the study. And she came running down. She screamed from the back of the chapel, you liar. And I'm like, I am not lying. I'm telling the truth for a change. I mean, I had told them I didn't want to become a sister. Then I became a sister. She thought because she allowed me to get a new clarinet, I was happy or something stupid. And so then all the sisters were sent up to their dorms. We lived in the old dormitories at that point, and we all had to pray. And then my parents got in wicked trouble because it was their sole force on me, pulling me out of my call. Ooh. They had nothing to do with it. They didn't even know I became a sister till after I called them and told them I became a sister. So they had nothing to do with it. And then I got called back and this I blanked out. I don't know what words were said. I just said, yes, whatever, just to get it over with, right? And then the next morning in the kitchen, I was waiting for me to be sent to the woodshed. I don't know, somewhere terrible, doing terrible jobs. Nothing happened. Nothing. And this
Which would make you feel inconsequential. Yes. Yeah. Like that was a big, huge moment. Why are you not at least, they don't care enough to even punish you?
No, they didn't care. So, but the thing is that I would say periodically every 9 months, every year, once a year, something, I would just write a note and say, I'm really not happy and I don't know what to do about it. I feel like I'm living somebody else's life. I'm just really unhappy. So then they would try this, they would try that. Basically, I was a great worker and I filled a role, because I single-handedly fed the sisters and brothers for at least 6 or 7 years, maybe 8. And then I would always have somebody to help me, but it wasn't like I had a coworker.
Right.
It was just, I don't know. I don't know what the thought process was, but eventually when I became 28, I'm not sure what year that is, but I turned 28 in Bermuda. I was sent to Bermuda for 6 months. They thought maybe that would help me.
Were and in most there when you got sent there,
my parents had been removed from Bermuda.
Oh,
they came home. They were on discipline for a while. Then they were sent back. But my parents were not in Bermuda when I was. And then the funny thing is, Bermuda. Most people's experience with Bermuda is horrible. Mine was an amazing experience. First of all, Sister Miriam, Sister Hannah were the sisters there, and then Carrie Witchard and Sister Erica, she was not a sister at that point, were the kids there, and Jennifer Poth from Grenville. But it was good. It was fun. We would eat lunch in the sun with their little dog Teddy, and I had a really good experience. I was honest, like I was 100% honest. And I remember hearing Miriam say to somebody on the phone, she said, well, everybody is expecting her to be this brat. She's not. She's great, basically. And
Oh,
it was so validating to me to hear that because, again, remember how we talked at the beginning of the session that it's like people have this like a holograph of you. You know what I mean? It's like they're not dealing with you, the human being, they're dealing with their perception of you. Then I came back from Bermuda and I was sent into another job. And then I kind of had, I mean, it was mild, but it was a fling with a brother. So I got into it with a brother with different motives. Like, I didn't know this at the time, but I really liked this brother. It was not physical for me. It was, he gave me good attention. I was special. I loved being special and having attention. And it was, positive. And we had a good time. At that time, we were all young 30s, old 20s, and there were like a handful of us sisters and brothers working in the retreat kitchen. The brothers were cooking for their brothers because it had been decided to split up the sisters and brothers' food. And so the brothers were cooking for the brothers, the sisters were the sisters, but it was fun, and it was rare at that time, to work with brothers in that close proximity. But for him, it was sexual. So it kind of came to a head on, I want to say, Easter. It was an Easter one year, and we met up. I was on the switchboard. He came back. The sisters and brothers were all watching a movie. It was Braveheart. So I hate that movie to this day. I hate that movie. And he came back and met me, and he gave me this huge hug, which I loved it because I just really wanted a hug, right?
yeah.
And I realized that's all I wanted was a hug. Well, he wanted more. Some things happened, but nothing. I mean, honestly, it wouldn't even be first base, basically. You know what I mean? Like that's catastrophic with a sister and a brother.
Sure.
So somehow I got wind that he was feeling guilty and he made an appointment. Oh, I might have still been Betty's secretary. I was Betty's secretary. So I got wind that he was making an appointment to speak to Betty's. So I knew he was going to do battle. So I was oh no, because the rules of engagement are you confess first, you get the best deal. Right?
Yes.
So because I knew he was making an appointment, I told everything that I remembered. Now, unfortunately, I blanked shit out. And so I didn't confess everything because I didn't remember it happened. But I said it, and I ran up to Betty's home and I put it right under her door at home. So I beat that ass. Because this was self-preservation. Right?
Yes, that's how it was. Kill or be killed, survival of the fittest. That's all it was.
Yes. So
and that's a horrible, horrible way to live, just to say. But go ahead.
I know we're running short on time. Do you want me to keep talking? It's okay.
I do. I want to hear, was that the beginning of you getting ready to leave?
Yes. So the reason is so I got in trouble, but again, it wasn't like basically Betty told the sisters, you can do whatever you want to her, but she's still going to be my secretary. So that was a cue for them.
Take it easy.
Well, then we can't kill her because you can see like the blood drooling off of Sister Irene's teeth, not really, but
No, I get you.
But
yeah, I mean, that was true.
Long story short, I was her secretary, and then the brother involved, he was sent to Bermuda for 6 months. I don't know what his experience was, but I know I was asked to leave the community for 3 months so he could come back to the Brotherhood and kind of acclimate without me being around to be a temptation.
Where were you supposed to go?
Bill Showalter, who I was seeing at the time, found this church.
I'm sorry. You were seeing Bill Showalter?
Oh, sorry, Bill Showalter. Yeah, he is.
What do you mean? See, I know, but what do you mean you were seeing him?
I was seeing him as for counseling. Sorry.
Oh, for counseling. I'm like,
no, I was not dating him.
Wow.
So he was the closest thing to a psychologist the community had. So I was seeing him, and I was going through a lot of things, and I was also going through my adoption thing. Like I had gotten my non-identifying information. And anyway, long story short, he found a place, he asked the Presbyterian, found a place that needed somebody to be a secretary for a church for 3 months while their secretary was out on maternity leave.
They literally sent you away.
Yes.
Like, not to Bermuda, not to any of their sub
No.
places. Like, you were out of there.
It was amazing. It was
Okay.
amazing. First time ever. I have to say, first time ever. I was terrified. And they all knew I was a sister. Like, that wasn't hidden. But, I mean, it was weird. It was weird because it didn't matter what I was. I was just a human being out there, experiencing, like, I was living on my own. I was staying at this apartment. It was amazing. This old lady was down in Florida being a snowbird. I got to stay in her apartment. Found this huge car I bought my first pair of jeans there. I mean, and honestly, the longer I was there, the more I realized how happy I was. I wasn't living in constant fear. I mean, of course, because when you come out of the community, there's so many coping mechanisms, and you put people in these big, huge positions of power that they shouldn't be in, So of course there was still making sure the minister was happy with me, but that I'm not flirting with him. And then, all this shit, all this stuff going through your mind, because the community really has you navel gaze 24/7.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But it was amazing. But that's kind of what they even offered to keep me there and to support me to not go back to the community, because I didn't want to go back.
Yeah.
And I could have, but I don't know what it is. It's just inside. That wasn't my home. And it wasn't that the community was. I didn't stay. And hindsight's 50/50, 20/20. And I honestly don't know if that was a good or a bad decision. But I made myself a deal that if I went back, it was fish or cut bait. Either, I really try to be a sister. Not that I hadn't been trying, but really try to be a sister, but really be honest with my take on things. And if people didn't like it, oh, well, then I'll have to do something else. And it was funny because once I got back, people appreciated my new take on being honest. And because I wasn't like, how sometimes you can be honest and you're really strident, causing trouble. I wasn't that. It was more, if I'm in a situation, I'm going to say it like I see it instead of couching it. And I still was couching it, but I mean, I was saying it like I saw it a lot more than I had. And for a while, people really liked it. But then after a while, people got sick of it. Mm-hmm. And it's funny, I was talking to my therapist maybe 2 months ago. And I said, I figured I must have gotten that quality from my birth mom. Like, because I have a hard time, like if I see an injustice or something I think is wrong, I have a hard time not calling it out, even at the community of Jesus.
Well, I would just want to tell you, this is a theme that has come up repeatedly with other survivors, and one that I have also. And I think it is, I think it's because no one protected us. It didn't matter if things were right or wrong. They just were whatever they said they were. And I think there was something inside us as children that was saying, that's not right. It's not right. It's not right. But there was no one protecting us. And so as adults who are evolving as people and undoing all of the interrupted development, injustice is the thing that will light us up. Like something that is wrong, unjust, unfair, it brings out a very strong response in a lot of us.
Well, but the interesting thing is I had it there.
Oh, no, I think we had it there too. I do.
And yes. And what she said, well, yeah, maybe you got that from your birth mother, who knows? But she said, honestly, what it tells me as a therapist is that's hyper independence. And I thought, you know what, that's a really interesting thing, because nobody's going to stick up for me. I'll have to stick up. And I thought, that's really interesting. I mean, even with the country these days, I have a problem. Like, I don't want to make unnecessary waves, but I have a problem keeping my mouth shut.
Yeah, same. Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
So that definitely, the Minnesota thing definitely led me to the path where the fish or cut bait choice really was coming up, right? And one of the last meetings I remember us having with Betty Pugsley was there was an election where Ron Minor was up as possibly being elected against Betty. And I just found the whole way that was handled disgusting and troubling, because so I had a weird kind of setting because I helped a lot behind the scenes. I wasn't first line of Betty Pugsley's defense, but I helped others. I helped the first line. So I was involved in some things. I was the helper doobie. And for that election, basically, Ron almost got elected, and as prior, because I think people were really ready for a new breath of fresh air. Then shit hit the fan, because it must have been either he won or it was a tie. Like, it was so close that basically Betty said, I won't accept it unless I'm unanimously elected. And so they had a session where Ron, who was being humble, didn't really sell himself, right? Basically, Ron could talk to the community for X amount of time, and then Betty, kind of like politics, after it was decided, after it became that it was one or the other. And then I think Betty left. And then all of a sudden people got up and started smashing Ron, including his daughter. Oh. It was awful. I mean, they were cutting him down to shreds.
Even though they had actually just elected him.
I don't know if they elected him. I just want this so I don't get sued. I don't know that they did. But either he was close enough.
A unanimous, right?
It was not unanimous. Or maybe he won. Who knows? Who knows? But all I know is it was close enough that they had to do a re-elect. So they had Ron say a piece, Betty say a piece, and then Betty left. And Ron, he got it from community members. He got it from Father Lane. He got it, who is a community member. He got it from his oldest daughter, and then the two younger ones chirped up and supported her. And then I think his wife did. And I'm not saying nobody's blameless. Nobody. But he didn't deserve that. It was terrible.
I remember him as being a really kind person.
Well, even
gentle.
Yes. When my dad died, he made a point of coming to the reception for Dad and speaking to me. And I had been out of the community for, 15, 20 years almost. And he was so kind, and he said something and I felt no judgment. Like, when I go back, there's a lot of, some people are really nice and others are very judgmental, but, and so then Betty came and met with us, and I said to her, in front of the sisters, I said, I personally need to say that I hope that never happens again. I thought that was terrible what happened to Ron. And you could hear everybody kind of go, ooh, that kind of a thing. But I just felt like it was wrong and it needed to be spoken. And basically at that point, nobody gave a shit what I thought. I was already having a hard time. And then, so I don't remember the exact things, but I do. I wanted a trip to Colorado. I found out some truths about my birth father. I went on the trip with him, and I met my 3 half-brothers by him, none of which he raised. So he had 4 kids, 3 different mothers, but it was great to meet the siblings. Mm-hmm. But I didn't know. I knew he had been in prison. I didn't know what he had been in prison for. It was pretty gnarly, and I was very upset. My 2 half-brothers told me, and because they didn't know what kind of person I was since I was traveling with him. Right. But thank God we all had walls up, but the one with the stiffest wall gave me the biggest hug. You know what I mean? So it was amazing to meet them, but I was pretty upset, and I didn't want to talk about it with anyone except for Betty. She can be creative and she can be two-faced. So, but at the same time, she was in charge. She sent me to go counsel with Mother Judy, and a sister. And I went with Danielle because she was my peer, but she also wasn't super self-righteous. So I thought it would be nice to have a friend, go with me. And Long story short, very long story short, basically, Judy, I said, I really feel like I need a leave of absence. I need to reevaluate. I felt that I was pushed into becoming a sister, and basically nobody gave a shit what I had to say. They wanted to make sure I became a sister. And I would just like time out so I could reevaluate with nobody around putting pressure on me. And I, honest to God, between you and me, Bonnie, I swear to God, I wanted a timeout. I was not trying to get out nicely, but I don't want to bring all the ins and outs, but somebody, Danielle got replaced with another sister who I have a lot of bad feelings towards still. And she's somebody I called her out a lot because I didn't agree with it. Like, she was very Nazi-esque, kind of. That's her personality about things. And anyway, I wrote a note. I asked for leave of absence. Judy didn't want me to take one. I got permission from Betty to take a leave of absence. And then I wanted to be upfront and just say, I'm not planning on wearing my habit during this time, because I wanted to be a vanilla person blending in with society as much as you can, never having lived in society. And so I wrote that note. And she wrote on top of it, I think she's just trying to get out of here nicely. I don't think she wants to leave of absence, blah, blah. I shared a desk with her because we were on the same committee at that time. So I read it. I felt like she shouldn't have left it there. She didn't want me to read it. It came back and I was cooking dinner. I had 2 dinner nights for the sisters. And the answer from Betty was either stay or go.
Not getting the leave of absence.
Right. Yeah. And so then they called my parents in, who I literally hadn't talked to about anything other than, giving Christmas and birthday presents since my senior year. And this is 20 years later. They called them down to have a heart to heart with me, and also Steve and Lori, my brother and sister-in-law. And it was really weird because as a sister, you didn't talk with them about anything. And then all of a sudden here you are having to catch them up on years and years
20 years of your life.
Yeah. Basically, we talked, and, Mom and Dad were like, we'll pay for you to go on the Mercy ship. We'll pay for you. Please don't leave. Please don't leave. And I'm like, so I agreed that I'd pray about everything that was said. I don't even remember it all, but that's how my brain works. We left, came back the next night, and I just said, I just need to say before we start talking, I will be on the plane on next Tuesday, but I'm happy to talk about anything we want to talk about. And you could just see everybody's faces drop. I just knew for myself, if I didn't leave that Tuesday, I would never leave. And I had spent at least 20 years putting it off. Yeah. Actually, it was 22 years because I was a novice for 2 years. And I just felt like I'm 40. I've lived my life for everybody else but me. I'm never, it's not even that I wanted to be so selfish. I just felt like I was living a lie. I was living for, other people's life. And then Judy the coup de grace was that she told me that I absolutely had to never think again. I had to do what I was told and never think. And I knew I would die as a person. I wouldn't be Susan or Sue or Sister Julia. I would be just a robot running around, because I had spent years trying to do all the things they wanted. So after 34 and a half years, so that's how I came to leave. And it's been tough, definitely had good moments, and I don't regret it whatsoever, because I wasn't like, we'll support you if you choose to leave and build a life, or we'll support you if you stay here. It was, in my mind, it was always, we'll disown you or we'll support you.
So you got on a plane and you flew away somewhere.
I went to Florida. It was my half brother. That was a whole nother story. I'm just trying to save on time here.
It's totally good. But you landed in Florida and you built a life there?
One of those half brothers that I met had his mom and stepfather had a place that I could stay rent free for 2 months.
Okay.
So I moved there, and it's funny because that arrangement in itself had all its, you can stay here for free for 2 months, but you must go to church with us every Sunday.
Oh, yeah.
Sure, we'll hire you at $7 an hour. And I ended up getting a job with the temp agency for $9.30 an hour. So I felt like oh, you know what I mean? Do they have my best
Yeah.
interest or not? Which makes you feel bad because they are the reason I got to leave. But I felt like a Martian. I felt like outside I looked like a white woman with blondish hair and blue eyes, and I feel like I should have green skin and antennas,
Yes. Yes.
because I hadn't lived in just a non-communal setting since I was 6.
So tell us, how is life for you today?
It's really good. I mean, I've got a job that I really like. I wish I made more money, to be honest, because
Don't we all?
that being said, I've got a job. I live alone now. I did get married. I chose to leave him because it was in a person, it was very reminiscent of the community kind of setting, very
Mhm.
not, no warmth, no nurturing. And, a lot of the information was based on community expectations. No, like there should be affection between you, or, you know what I mean?
Right.
Well, we're
Right.
compatible.
What else would you have known to do? Like
Yeah.
there was nothing else to do.
I divorced him. I live on my own. I have a cat and a dog. I had to put my other dog down recently, which was so
Oh, I'm
sad.
so sorry.
But it's amazing the healing power of animals. I truly feel like 90% of my healing has been because of my animals. And I've been in therapy. I mean, that was one of the first things I wanted to do once I got out was listen, they basically at the community, I was led to believe I was crazy or I was motivated by lust. Turns out neither true, but I was like, I don't even care if I am, honestly.
Yeah.
I just I want to find somebody, let's name whatever it is and let's fix it. Because I mean, Betty told me she thought I was leaving because of the incident with the brother, that it woke something, like she was gesturing to her kind of
Oh,
sexual area.
gross.
And I don't know, maybe it was, but I come to find out, no, it really wasn't. What did I like about that whole thing? Getting a hug, right?
Affection. Yeah. Yep. Yep.
And I even talk about it sometimes, like, is it even possible to have a relationship that, having spent 61 years or at least 50 something years at the community, you know what I mean, with no
Yeah.
affection, is it possible to have a relationship? But I mean, I feel solid with God. I don't go to church, but if I'm ever on the Cape, I do go to church. I mean, like I said on the Rock Harbor Truth, I mean, I think my belief in God does not equate to the community of Jesus, and I feel
Right.
like I might be at the percentage point because I feel like a lot of the kids, you were brought up in the community way, and my relationship with God was before that,
Yeah.
but I'm content. I am so content. I've learned to be very content. I love my friends. Like I've got a small, we call our, we're kind of the ragtag friends, but they're people I can be really honest with. They can be honest with me, and we're still really good friends, and I
I
feel like
love
that's
it.
something to hold on to. I'm in touch with my nephew, who I love to pieces. He's in Colorado, and his kids, and I love my nephew who's up there still living at the community, and anything I speak out about at the community, it's not towards him. You know what I mean?
Of
Like,
course. Of
and I
course.
love him, and I really
Of
do like
course.
Stephen Laurie. It's just unfortunately our lives haven't been close, right? But the thing is the community could be so much farther ahead if they just didn't lie so much or hide behind a lawyer who doesn't know what he's talking about. I mean,
Mhm.
I don't know if you can say that, but it makes me sad because I don't even hate all the community people up there.
No.
I just wish, just be upfront, quit hiding behind a
Well,
lawyer.
and maybe don't abuse people, and that would be good.
Yeah.
That'd be
Yeah,
a good place to start.
absolutely. And I feel like a lot of us get tarred and feathered because of sins that everybody has, but well, I was inconsequential there. Why would I be consequential now, right? But so much more could be gained if they could listen to people and feedback.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that doesn't happen. And that makes me sad,
There's a
you
lot
know?
of it that's sad, but the part I think that we have to hold on to is the fact that we got out, that we are finding
Absolutely.
our own healing and our own
And
path, and we're
peace.
finding our own selves. I mean, growing up without a real clear identity, is kind of a lifelong journey to figure out even who we are. And
God,
we're
yeah,
doing
it
that.
was, yes. And I would say to anybody, it was worth leaving. Any hardships I've experienced, they're learning curves,
Sure.
they're learning curves, but just this sense of peace I never
Yeah.
had. And I have it. And the freedom that comes from being able to search for truth, speak for
Yes.
truth. I don't know. It is
It's
better than
freeing.
$1 million. Now, I wouldn't mind
Agreed.
$1 million, but you
Well,
know,
if we could help you with that, we would.
oh, no, no, no. But I
But
mean, you know what I mean? The point is, like, it was so worth it. Like, I would do it again tomorrow, as hard as it was. And you know what's funny? When I go back to the community to visit, I'll never forget one of the guys who I went to school with, high school with. We were there, middle school, high school. He introduced himself, and I'm like, I know who you are, and I know what you like for your birthday breakfast. You know what I mean?
oh,
Like I'm not going to forget all my friends at the community just because I disagree with the leadership and how it's been
right,
run, right? Like
right.
these are people I grew up with. These are people I still like, and
Yes,
it's painful. I wouldn't give it up. I wouldn't go back in a second. But because, and it's not because I hate them, it's because I feel closer to God now than I ever did there, and that's sad.
no,
And
actually, that's beautiful. And I just want to thank you for sharing your journey with us and sharing that beautiful message, especially that you feel closer to God now and that you have peace that you never had.
yeah,
Those
yeah,
things, those are beautiful things. And thank you
yeah.
so much. And on behalf of Rock Harbor Truth, my name is Bonnie Zampino. I'm your host. Thank you for listening as we continue telling the story of the cult on the Cape.